Tens of thousands of Americans with HIV are losing access to treatment because nearly 20 states are imposing restrictions on the Ryan White AIDS drug assistance programs. States are tightening eligibility requirements like income caps and reducing covered medications due to rising drug costs and flat federal funding. With Florida implementing the largest cuts to date, experts warn that the interrupting treatment will increase infections and drug resistance, while advocacy groups have called it a financial and public health crisis or an economic disaster. In a recent X post, Marjorie Greene Taylor responded to a tweet from a podcaster known as Shannon Joy, which in so many words drew attention to the possibility that Donald Trump could use the war in Iran as an excuse to circumnavigate the midterm elections. In her words, Trump doesn't seem to care about the midterms. Who wants to bet he'll declare a national emergency because of Iran or some other manufactured crisis and try to cancel the elections in November? Marjorie Greene replying, "Yeah, I could see it," going on to call the prospect insane immediately afterwards. All of this calls into question whether or not Donald Trump actually has the legal authority to conduct these kinds of affairs. As time goes on, this issue may draw more and more public attention as the election season draws near. The lowdown on the pizza world, Papa John's is planning to shake things up, shutting down 300 of their North American restaurants, mostly in franchise spots that aren't hitting their financial targets. They're hoping to get most of this done by the end of 2027, with about 200 closings this year. They haven't spilled the beans on exactly which cities will be affected. They're not the only ones. Apparently, Wendy's has also announced a plan to close hundreds of its own U.S. locations recently. It seems as though fast food chains are doing some major housekeeping and focusing on better performing spots to get sales back on track. Today, fears of extended conflict in the Middle East have sent global markets reeling for a second consecutive day. Major stock indexes, including the Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ, saw significant losses as investors reacted to escalating military strikes between Israel and Iranian-backed groups, coupled with mandatory departures of some U.S. personnel from several regional countries. The most immediate impact has been on energy prices. Oil surged after Iran threatened to block the Strait of Hormuz, a vital global shipping lane, driving U.S. crude oil to nearly $77 a barrel, and the international benchmark Brent crude past $83. Natural gas and diesel futures also posted sharp gains. This inflationary pressure has led to the U.S. dollar strengthening as traders anticipate the Federal Reserve may delay interest rate cuts. Analysts suggest the market's panic stems from a shifting view that the war will be prolonged, replacing earlier hopes for a quick resolution. The Trump administration is presenting a shifting rationale for the joint U.S.-Israeli military campaign against Iran, a conflict that has killed Iran's supreme leader and has resulted in the U.S. military casualties. Top officials, including Speaker Mike Johnson, suggested that the White House believes Israel was determined to act against Iran with or without American support. Secretary of State Marco Rubio described the U.S. action as a defensive move against an imminent threat stemming from this anticipated Israeli operation, stating the objective is to destroy Iran's weapon capabilities to protect U.S. and allied interests, rather than to achieve a regime change. President Trump outlined 4 core objectives for the mission: to wipe out Iran's missile and naval capacity, to stop the country from obtaining a nuclear weapon, and to halt its funding of terrorism armies. However, the action is drawing intense criticism from Democrats. Senator Mark Warner disputed the administration's claims of an imminent threat to the U.S., arguing the threat was primarily directed at Israel. This unilateral action by the president has also intensified a major debate in Congress over a war powers resolution which aims to restrain the president's ability to wage this war, dubbed Operation Epic Fury, without congressional approval. We're now on the 4th day of an escalating war, primarily involving U.S. and Israeli forces against Iran, with new developments emerging by the hour across the Middle East. The conflict has seen a dangerous expansion of Iranian targets. Washington has been forced to pull staff out of the Middle East after Iran struck the U.S. embassy in Saudi Arabia following a similar attack, the one on Kuwait. The escalating violence has also brought tragic casualty figures. U.S. and Israeli strikes have killed at least 787 people, with the majority in Iran. Additionally, 11 people have died in Israel and 52 in Lebanon due to retaliatory strikes against Hezbollah. 6 American service members are also confirmed dead, with others killed in the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Crucial infrastructure is being targeted. Explosions have been reported in Tehran, and the UN nuclear watchdog has noted some recent damage to Iran Natanz nuclear enrichment site. Israel alleges that Iran is attempting to rebuild its infrastructure program underground. Meanwhile, the economic fallout is severe. The conflict has severely disrupted global oil and gas supply, international shipping, and air travel. Oil prices have soared after Iran attacked ships in the crucial Strait of Hormuz. Iran also targeted international business interests, including the Amazon data centers in the UAE and Bahrain, and also as energy facilities in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. As for the war's duration, President Donald Trump has suggested it could last at least another 4 or 5 weeks, though the U.S. remains prepared for a longer engagement. Despite the commitment, the administration's objectives are still unclear, initially calling for the regime change before later statements denied that was the goal. The conflict also spread with Israeli military moving additional troops to southern Lebanon following Hezbollah attacks and subsequent Israeli airstrikes.